So, Maier, when was the first time you heard the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?
Somewhere around February to April 2022.
And who told you these words?
Okay, so I think it was either my cardiologist here, the cardiologist who diagnosed me, or it was a good friend of mine who's a doctor who was helping me interpret results or something, or maybe it was the friend who explained it to me. But yeah, it was sometime around that time, within 2 months of getting the first anomaly. That was when I heard the word.
So, we are here on Tales from the Heart, a podcast from the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association, with the Share Your Story episode with one of our ambassadors, Maier Bianchi. And we are going to talk a little bit about his HCM experience and his role as an ambassador. Maier, thank you so much for being with us on Tales from the Heart and sharing your story, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. Excited to share and help however I can.
Well, you've been doing a great job in the time that I've known you in terms of getting involved as an advocate. But let's take a step back to your personal experience. So, a few years ago, you hear these words, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. What went through your mind when these words were brought to you?
I didn't maybe quite understand it, but I'm sure there was like fear, or you hear of heart disease, you think of death, you think of anything like that, right? So it was kind of like uncertainty, I would say, like from the time, like, because I look at it like this, like February was when an anomaly was detected, had the scans. Then I was like, okay, let me get, like, can I have an MRI also so that I can really get a picture? Triple confirmed. Now I have it. But then from, let's just say, April, whenever that was, to July or August, when I went to a center of excellence for a specialist for this, I still didn't really understand it or understand the presentations because it's all kind of blending together. The doctor did explain it on a chart and all of that, but I would say it was just a sequence of events from February until December when I had elective open heart surgery to do something about it. It was just basically the different stages of grief, or the various stages of confusion, anger, denial, acceptance, and so on. And I would say, even up to the moment of having my surgery, I would say there was still probably things I was unclear about, or maybe that, that I know now, 3 years in, 3 to 4 years in retrospect, that I've known differently. Right. So I would say it was an ever evolving process.
I think all those words that you just tossed out there are really common for those with HCM. The word is scary. Your heart is not right. So we always assume the worst. Oh, I'm going to die. And in reality, HCM is a manageable condition when you have the right resources, the right specialists, and some education and knowledge. And that is what we try to bring to all of our constituents and make sure that they have a deep understanding of their disease state. So you get diagnosed, you go on for surgery, and you also decide to become an ambassador. And why did you feel it was important to not only get diagnosed and get your own treatment, but to actually talk about it in a public way? What
Well,
moved you?
what moved me was sometime when I was going to the specialty heart doctor, the HCM Center for Excellence, just shouting out the branding. That means it's a treatment center that is special, like that has cardiology services specialized for the treatment of this disease. Every time I would drive an hour, I was in my own head. I was alone. I wasn't accompanied by anyone from my family. So this was just me driving by myself. And I would go there. And, as a patient, and I don't know if you're like me, but I don't really enjoy going to doctor's offices and dealing with the healthcare system. And so I would go there, and I was on some me type stuff. And then one day I talked to the lady at the front desk, or I talked to a nurse, and she was like, yeah, I lost my son to this disease. And I was just kind of blown away at that moment. And then, someone was like, yeah, I have it. My little sibling has it. And I was like, oh. And then that was the first moment of like, this is bigger than me. This is something that, like, it just kind of was an aha moment, for better or lack of a better term, that it helped me put it into perspective because there's different presentations of this disease, and maybe I wasn't as educated about that back then, but even though I had a certain stage of heart failure, I wasn't at risk of sudden cardiac death, which then flipped my perspective, especially since then that I've met so many people with heart transplants like yourself, or people that have lost loved ones also like yourself. And I know today is your sister's birthday, and so
Thank
just
you.
wanted to send love to you and your family on this day. And so my point was like that was very transformative with me, and it's so emotional because I'm still suffering. I still have this disease. I still have the how much time do I have left on this earth? I have children, like I just don't know what I've got. I don't know what my heart has in store for me other than, hey, at least now we're treating it better. We've done damage to it by cutting into it, but hey, we've also fixed some things. So I have those lingering questions, but what I do know for sure is I feel blessed, and in the stratification of the patients, I consider myself I don't know what the right word is, but actually lucky, if you will, or blessed to not be at risk of sudden cardiac death and to not have lost a loved one. And so that was my fuel for wanting to give back. And also the second fact is that this disease is screenable, it's treatable. Therefore, screening is saving lives. It became so mathematically clear to me that if you can diagnose more people, we can prevent sudden cardiac death, because so often people only find out in an event, after an event, instead of prior to it. So I feel a compulsion to do something about it because it feels so tangible to do it. And that's what has fueled me as a person. And then the ambassador program was formulated somewhere around the same time, and I was invited by you and your team to be a part of it, and that has just led to stepping into that role. And then I've found like I'm doing it in my way, and so I was able to marry my desire to give back as well as be an ambassador.
But you also integrated it with your professional life, and you've used your individual platform to not only talk about your business, but to integrate why it's important for people to know about their heart health history. Can you talk a little bit about Hearts of Commerce?
Yeah, so it's funny you should ask because I work in the e-commerce industry. The e-commerce industry is a really amorphous term, but imagine all the companies that power online shopping. And if online shopping is billions and billions and billions of dollars, and those are tech companies making billions of dollars, you can imagine that there are millions of people employed in this industry, and these companies have an inordinate amount of power. And so the point of Hearts of Commerce is to raise awareness about genetic heart disease in the e-commerce community. And the ultimate goal is to get these companies, I could just name one like Klaviyo or Shopify, these very big entities that have a lot of power, and they're very large in either their local community or the global community, to get them to do things such as advocate for change, or support patients within their company, or promote more screening of employees, or just do things which can help have an impact without any kind of penalties, but just more trying to say, hey, if I can reach an affinity group, because HCM is I'm blank, 1 in 250 people have it. 85% don't know it. So there's just a very good statistical chance that there are others like me working in these millions of people in e-commerce. And if I can reach them or reach other people that have been affected by heart disease, since that's the number one killer in the United States, and HCM is a silent killer. So if I can reach those people and create an affinity group, together we can make a difference through targeted actions, such as encouraging companies to do something. And so the purpose of Hearts of Commerce is to enact change and impact the world in that way.
And that is an excellent example of somebody who didn't know about HCM 5 years ago, who gets diagnosed. You're going through your own journey. You've already had open heart surgery. You're on a myosin inhibitor. You're treating yourself well for your HCM, but then you've integrated your messaging not in a victim way, but in an empowerment way. And you shared with me a story a little while ago about a connection, whether it be through Hearts of Commerce or your personal connections, of somebody coming to you saying, hey, my child is having this problem with PVCs and they're in the hospital for PVCs. I have PVCs. And then you ask them a really important question about their family history. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so because not everyone has access to testing and medical care, the first thing you can do is to talk to your primary physician about your family heart history, right? Like if there's been anyone in your family that has had a sudden cardiac arrest or passed away from a heart attack or has any kind of heart condition, that's the first wake up signal to anyone, if you're listening, or anyone, is just, has there been anything in my family? Because that's the first indicator you should look deeper.
And in this particular case, you said that this person had 2 family members who passed away under the age of, like, 45.
Yeah.
And we end up in this space where now you have some knowledge that there's a family history of sudden death or early death from cardiac condition, and this person and their family member are having cardiac symptoms. And these are the moments where a couple of words from somebody who's been there may help them find their path forward. And I call them starfish on the beach. While the HCMA is trying to collect all the starfish, our ambassadors find one at a time and help them get back into the water and help them find a path forward. And I appreciate you having those conversations. They do turn into those opportunities for that individual to then turn to their clinician and say, I'm curious about family heart disease. This is my family history. That conversation starter with your chosen provider can really, truly change your life. So I appreciate your ability to see those moments and act upon them and know that HCMA is here as a resource for those people that you do find along your way, that we can help get them through the rest of their journey through our systems of intake and navigation and education. So that is wonderful to be able to cross over a diagnosis to a helping of a community member. A couple of weeks ago, you sent me a video because you went to an event and you were recognized for your work doing the Hearts of Commerce enterprise. You want to tell everybody a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so I belong to a community called Smarter Ships, which is a association of e-commerce professionals who work in a partnerships role. So like I'm the CEO of my own company, Be Maier, and so I often work on strategic partnerships myself because it's a small business. And so this was an awards gala or a event for the professionals from that organization. So it was a few hundred people in New York City, and they had an award called Impact Beyond Partnerships. And I was nominated for the award. I might have voted for myself as well. I think I cannot confirm or deny that, because sometimes you got to put yourself out there. And lo and behold, I won. You can see there's a video of it. I was genuinely shocked and, I just lowered my expectations as you should do, and I won. And then it was an amazing moment because here I was standing in a room being recognized for the purpose of Hearts of Commerce, and I had done a fundraiser as part of my ambassador work to the HCMA had a 5K to raise funds, and I raised a great amount of funds and activated a lot of people, and that was actually personally meaningful for me, which then culminated in this award. And this was all this fall 2025 that just passed. And so here I am being recognized for the contributions in front of the very community I'm trying to reach, meaning these are now the people inside an organization. They're not the ultimate decision makers, but they have the power to escalate things to the attention of the ultimate decision makers. And they themselves, may have their own issues. So it was just a very special moment where 3 years ago, now almost four, but let's just say November 2022, I said, hey, when I'm on the other side of my surgery, I'm going to give back. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then this was a moment of, oh, wow, I actually did X, Y, and Z. And now what? So it was just a really special moment for me.
And I was so proud of you. I got the video one night. I was laying in bed going through all my social medias, and I think you texted it over to me, and I'm like, "Wait, what is this?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" And I'm like getting all teary, and my husband's like, "What is going on?" I'm like, "They're happy tears. Don't worry, it's okay." So we were really impressed with that commitment to, okay, I want to give back, and we don't always have 1,000 volunteer opportunities where you can kind of check from. You got to look within your own resources and reach. what can I do from where I sit? Now, I'm going to age myself here, but it is our 30th anniversary officially February 1st. And I've been doing this work for 30 years. If you think I had this great plan set up as to what this was all going to look like, you're wrong. I just started and I did something. I did something small. I started a website in 1995, 96. And that website gave us a voice as patients. Then we had a message board, and then we had social media. Then we have centers, and it grows. And you look for where you have your opportunities to share a message and to impact people's lives. We are living in a crazy world right now. 2026 is definitely not going to be boring, but we can control our health to the best degree that we can control it. We know that things in the HCM world are actually better than they've ever been. New therapies, better awareness. We're getting recognition, but we've got to get people diagnosed. Got to make sure they have access to healthcare systems, and we can do amazing things. You mentioned you saw an article. I saw the same one this week in the public media. You want to talk a little bit about the article and what you noticed in it, and then I'll tell you what I noticed in it?
Sure. So, my dad sent to me a text message the other morning that the New York Post had an article specifically about HCM, quoting the exact facts that we always quote, which is 85% this masquerading killer exists, and 85% of people don't know they have it. And so it was a moment of, I was happy to see that in a mainstream news source, they were specifically talking about HCM, which is, as I said before, raising awareness saves lives. And then the part that was disheartening was at the end of the article, they were like, despite that you can go with doctors, there's no treatments that exist. And I was like, hey, that's a factual inaccuracy. So again, thanks to mainstream media for not doing your research, and journalism is on life support. But that there are treatments, because I'm on one, and I'm legitimately benefiting from one of those treatments, and I have HCM. There's different presentations of HCM, and there's different treatments for those. So I felt like while it was a great moment, I just wish it wasn't there wasn't lack of hope in the end. So that was my experience.
And I read the article and I had the same reaction. I'm like, why didn't they call us? Because they gave the wrong information. There are many treatments for HCM. Sudden death is rare in HCM now. Once you are diagnosed, risk stratified. We can never say there's a zero risk of sudden death. It's just not possible. But we do know who is at moderate to high risk, and those people should be talked to about getting a defibrillator, whether they want to or not. That's up to them and their doctors. We don't push a treatment. It's there if you need it, if you are at risk. And that is a major change. I was doing an interview yesterday, which will come out in February, about my diagnostic journey. I don't talk about that very often. And in 1980, when I was diagnosed, I was told CPR can't save you. We got nothing. Good
Wow.
luck. I was 12. Okay. So that's where we were. We're not there anymore. We've got defibrillators for sudden death management. We've got myosin inhibitors to help the muscle function better. We've got surgery if anatomically we have to correct the anatomy inside of the heart. We've got other medications to protect you from stroke. And we have so much now, but we have to make sure it gets into the hands of the people who need it. So, we have a
Yeah.
comment coming in. Didn't know either. Even though multiple sudden deaths ran in my family, I am so sorry that that happened to you and that you've lost family members as well. And I do hope that you're getting involved in the community and that you are getting the rest of your family screened and that we can protect the rest of them. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are
I didn't
all
even
out
know my
here.
grandfather had the disease. Well, and he didn't die. He died, I think, of a heart attack, but he also had kidney failure, and he was like 70 something. But the whole point is he had aortic substenosis, which apparently is now called HCM, or don't. I mean, that might be a correct me if I'm wrong, but I meant he had the disease was called something else, and he had it, and I didn't know. So yeah.
So the original name of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which it hangs on the wall in the conference room behind me, was functional aortic stenosis. That
That's
was
what it
the
was. Okay.
that was the first name that Dr. Eugene Brunwald gave to patient Claude Brady in September of 1959. So that was the first diagnosis. The second name we got was idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis,
Get that in my brain.
IHSS. That was my original diagnosis. Then, approximately 1980 or so, we did a name change to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy with obstruction or without. Now we have, for a lot of reasons that I'll go into in another podcast, we have a number of new acronyms, and we have had over 75 different names as a disease.
Wow.
So it's getting better, but there was 30, 40 years between the 50s and the 90s of a lot of names. Everybody who discovered hypertrophy in a different place named the disease. Brock's disease, Tier's disease, ASH, so many names, so many names. So we know that the names, when you're talking about your family heart health history, may be a confounder. It might confuse. But the family history of grandpa having heart disease and then kidney failure, my father did the same thing. He had HCM and went into kidney failure. So these are triggers that you want to put into your family heart health history to find those other individuals. So who else in your family has been affected, Mayor? Do you know?
I think I have a cousin, like a mom's cousin, someone else who has, I think, again, I don't know 100%, but I think he has it. And he had, I don't think he had a stroke. He had some issue that required hospitalization. Now he's good. So, yes, there's at least one other person I know in my family who has this. And I haven't been able to fully focus on putting together a family genetic testing kit, but like I highly advise anyone, if they're listening, that if it, it descends from your, like if I, like, for example, I have children, 50% chance to pass it to the next generation. And there's specific gene markers that can indicate if you have, the different presentations. There's some that don't, but basically that's where you should in families.
So
So,
we start family screenings with the individual who's diagnosed with HCM. If we can genetically test them and identify a pathogenic mutation, then we can use that information to screen other family members. About 40% will come up with a pathogenic mutation, which means 60%, the common result is no gene
oh
identified.
wow.
Stay tuned for some more news on that coming up. We're going to be talking to a couple of organizations about some new ways to look at genetic testing, and maybe some new methods of genetic testing that might be able to go a little deeper into the genome and maybe see things that we couldn't see before. Technology is advancing, my friends. It's a good time to have a bad
Well,
diagnosis. HCM isn't as bad as it used to be. I used that phrase for a long time. I think I need to
well,
change my
I
phraseology.
I mean, I think it's like it's just philosophical, right? Like there, even though because of advanced communication, now we're exposed to everything in the world, but there hasn't been a greater time to be born as a human than the year 2026, let alone a greater time to be diagnosed with a disease like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, such as in the year 2026 or 2022 when I was diagnosed. And so I think optimism and a lack of apathy is what's going to help more people deal with this and make it hopefully a distant memory 100 years from now, or something that is a minor bump in the road, and humans can live longer, fuller lives because of treatments that have come out.
Before we started the podcast, we were having a little discussion, and I hope I don't mispronounce your name. Is it Ritalin? I don't know if I'm
I
pronouncing
read that as Rita Lynn, yeah, but I'm
Ritalin.
not.
Okay.
That's what I
Okay.
read it as, yeah.
It's a pretty name. I've never seen it before. So hi, Ritalin. So when she's talking about her family members are refusing to be screened.
Mm.
And I've been dealing with this for 30 years. You deal with different families who come to you at different times, and sometimes they don't want to take health information from a family member. Your diagnosis, they don't want to think of it as impacting them. And sometimes it takes time for people to come to terms with what the reality is of their family heart health history and how it might impact them. You can lead a horse to water, you can't force it to drink, you can provide them with information. But here's where we get into these uncomfortable moments. When we, as those who are diagnosed, have the knowledge that diagnosis doesn't mean end of life, it means an opportunity to get treatment, but not everybody's ready for that. And if they're not ready, it doesn't mean they're not listening to you. They just might need some more time. There could be a lot of reasons why they don't want to get screened yet. I would encourage everybody before a screening to maximize your life insurance. Not because I think
Yeah.
you're going to die.
I made that mistake because you can't get any afterwards.
We're high risk after our diagnosis. So before a family gets screened, have everybody go out and maximize their life insurance if you can afford it. And that would give some people some comfort going forward. Genetic information cannot be used for the purposes of health insurance access or educational opportunity access. But the genetic information can be used by a life insurance company to rate your policy. So
So,
if you're diagnosed, you can be rated. If you carry a gene, you can be rated. So you might be able to get it, but it might be expensive. After diagnosis, it becomes very difficult to get life insurance. So that might be one concern people have. Others may relate to their access to healthcare. I will give this shout out as it is January 9th, and we are in the midst of this discussion right now as a country. Contact your local or your federal senators and let them know what you want from them regarding healthcare access and ACA subsidies. This is your time to speak. Call your elected officials. I do not believe ACA subsidies are the answer to the long-term problem, but we need it as a pulse check so that we can go fix the other parts of the system, but we all have to come to the table and fix the other parts of the system. So some people may be afraid to get screened because of insurance access or cost or stigma. There's a lot of reasons why people don't want to be screened. Just be patient with your family.
yeah, and I have stronger feelings on that, so I'm just gonna take the opportunity to express myself that the whole term ignorance is bliss. Hey, ignorance is bliss until someone dies, then you might have regret about that ignorance. And so I would say like choose your own adventure, but then also choose the consequences. And so I don't think I think being a patient is hard enough than having and advocating for yourself is hard enough versus becoming a pariah in your own family for preaching about it. And so I think being very factual with people. And I think I've learned because, again, if we can all have the Star Trek technology where I can just point a device at your heart and be like, yep, you have that. Nope, you don't have that. And it costs a penny to do that. That's the world I want to live in. But unfortunately, access to healthcare is limited, it's expensive, it's dispensed. Especially if you live in a socialized medicine country, you don't have like I can go get a test tomorrow if I can fight for it and worry about the payment. But in some countries, you can't. You have to wait on a list and get healthcare when they decide to give it to you. And I think, and my point where I'm going with this is that that's why it's not just about testing. It's about family heart history, stepping through it. Then you get an EKG. Like there's so many ways to get to a diagnosis that it's very important that you feel empowered that you can help your family just by talking about it. Then they go talk to their doctor. Then that doctor does something. And then another doctor. Like it's a chain of events. It's not just snap your fingers, you have HCM. It's very, very important. And this is what I'm talking about with Hearts of Commerce and my ambassador work is like, just if I can just influence people to think about it, whether or not they have HCM, I'm doing a good job. Like I'm sure factually there have been people like, hey, Maier, just because you talked about it, I went to talk to my doctor about heart disease. And I'm like, great, that's the point because it's not just HCM that's killing people. It's heart disease across the board and it's preventable and treatable. So my point to you, Lisa, about the whole to Rita Lynn out there is don't get exasperated. Just find a better way to communicate with them and leave the gravity of the situation on them. Don't you go to sleep every night worrying about them. Make them go to sleep every night worrying about not listening to you. And you should sleep soundly because you did your best.
I would agree with you on a lot of those points. I will clarify a few.
Please
Um,
do.
I've been able to travel to a lot of different countries and work with a number of different countries on bringing better HCM care. And once you get inside of these other countries and you see how socialized medicine is working, it's not as bad as you think.
No, I don't think it's bad. I
It,
would, yeah.
not necessarily a you think, or it's
Yeah.
not what we as Americans have been led to believe is the problem. Right now in the United States, there are 3 to 5 month waiting lists to get into an HCM center.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
you like, we have waiting lists here. We
Yeah,
we
I had to
are
wait.
waiting for services. Yeah.
I had
I
to
I have
wait to
people
go to mine. Yeah.
I have people waiting all over the place. And that's just because there's a volume and there's hours in the day and there's a certain number of providers and we can only do what we can do. But the healthcare system that we're currently operating under was set up in a very different way than is able to function in 2026. It hasn't been functioning well for a long time. I will be
No.
having a complete session. So Tales from the Heart is expanding this year. This is a share your story version. A few hours ago or an hour ago, I was meeting with Dr. Martin Marin from Leahy, and we were talking from a clinician's point of view. But I have a new edition of Tales from the Heart called Deconstructing Healthcare. We all need to understand healthcare better. We all need to get to the root cause. And I bring this up because Dave gives us a question here, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Dave says the problem is health insurance companies don't want you to get healthy because they will lose out on money. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I can understand why you think so. And this is what deconstructing healthcare is going to hopefully enable us to do as the year goes on, is talk about why it's set up like it is, where did it come from, and how do we break it down to foundational and rebuild a healthcare system that works for all of us. We chose to go to a profit-driven healthcare system in the early 70s. That was a mistake. We need a public option. We need private options. We need more options, not less options. And I don't know if anybody's ever told you this or not, but let me let you in on something here, people. Whether you call it a premium or a tax, it's still money coming out of your pocket to pay for your health insurance.
That's true.
So, do you want to pay a premium to a company that's making money off of your health, or do you want to pay into a system that's there to support your health? So it's a different philosophy, and I don't think one is right and one is wrong. They both have their place, and many countries have both a public and a private system. So I think we need to evolve to a public-private potential, that if you don't have private insurance, that you will always have the option of public insurance, but that we will pay for that in our taxes because taxes and premiums, it's just money out of our pocket. I'm gonna
Yeah.
step off of that.
I just wanted to add one thing about companies and just in general how people see, like, just to clarify one thing about that is, like, even in this for-profit model, depending on what kind of insurance you have determines how fast you can access specialized care. So like you said, there's waiting lists. Not everyone has a health insurance where they can just skip to a specialist right away or make some phone calls and get in. Like, a lot of people have also can't get off of work to go to the doctor. The system is set up against you, so it takes a long time regardless, because health is not a priority. And so one of the things I'm thinking about with Hearts of Commerce, and there's research, like there's an actual federal National Institute of Health study about this, that like companies that prioritize cardiovascular wellness actually see a better return on investment from their employees. So if you are a naked capitalist, dollars and cents kind of person, it's still in your profit interest to get people screened for healthcare and for heart disease. So I think there's a way to marry all of it into better outcomes, because healthy people are happier people and happier people do a better job in life. And I just wish it was that simple, but that's, at least there's numbers to back it up.
There is proof in the literature. We know that those with better access to healthcare stay healthier. They go to the doctor for preventative care and they stay in front of their disease. It's actually interesting that in HCM, we actually live longer lives than we were expected to many years ago, because we are engaged with healthcare. We know what our blood pressure should be. We know when we're not well to go get care. We know that for us, this community, Vaccinations are important to us because flu hits us harder, COVID hits us harder. We know how to protect ourselves. Now, many of you may not choose to do that, but that's your choice. But if you're engaged with a healthcare system and a doctor who you trust, you can make those decisions for yourselves, and companies should support those decisions. And we should find a way to get health insurance. It doesn't include our employer in that pathway, in my opinion, but we're going to evolve healthcare. We're going to evolve HCM understanding, and we're going to keep having good conversations about it. It doesn't mean that somebody's right or wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, we're living in a world of black and white, and I'm here to tell you that we are all shades of grays. So please stop being so polarizing and let's talk about real solutions. And let's get people to start talking about their family heart health histories. Mayor, you've been doing such a great job on this, and I really applaud you for your work in Hearts of Commerce and being brave enough to share your story with people. It's not easy talking about this stuff. It's a little scary, but it's important. Any last words for our listeners today?
Um, I think you said it best. No, it just, yeah, just really, you have agency in the process. You should definitely speak up if you feel something. Don't be afraid to ask any question when it comes to health. There's no bad questions of your doctor, or no one is going to fault you for telling them that you care about them. So I would always err on the side of taking that risk with your loved ones, because they will appreciate you later for it. And it's not easy, but I think we have to have more uncomfortable conversations in order to get better results. And I'll just say, hey, thank you, Lisa, for what you're doing and for everything your organization does for people. And shout out to the Lori Fund. And that if you're a patient who needs help getting access to healthcare, the HCMA has programs for that. And I think that's what's so fortunate. Like, I had help with the patient support groups, and the mental health side of this is so important, because without mental health, you may not take care of your physical health. And so I just want to say mental health is just as important. And, in a time when we can be so isolated by technology, and by that, technology is also there to bring us together. So always reach out to someone if you need help, because there's always someone that's going to be there to help you. You just have to have the courage to say something.
I thank you for bringing up the mental health component. It is a major uh, concern of ours. And we've tried for many years to find ways to support families through the mechanisms that we have available to us at HCMA. They're not fully adequate, so we're going to grow them. And we have some really exciting initiatives coming up related to our Hearts in Mind campaign, which will help us build a mental health network for cardiac patients beyond HCM. But of course, we're going to start where our heart lives, and that's in HCM. And hopefully, many others will benefit from the work that we will be able to do this year. Mayor, thank you for all you've done for the cause and for your family and for your community through Hearts of Commerce. And we look forward to a really productive 2026 and continuing to watch your story grow. And I'm sure we'll have you back on Tales in the future to get some updates. So thank you very much for sharing your story with us today and agreeing to do it live so we didn't have to do any editing afterwards. But you're
Yeah.
a pro at this. You got your podcast station set up there, so you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much. I wish you a happy and healthy 2026
Same.
and look forward to great work ahead. If you want to share your story with us at the HCMA, you can reach Julie Rousseau at 973-983-7429, and she can take care of a volunteer intake for you. We need to do an intake and navigation first. So if you haven't done that, that's where you start the process. And if you want to share your story and come on a podcast with me and talk about it, that's always in the realm of possibility. So
And
do your intake and navigation, do a volunteer intake. Let us know what you're interested in. If you want to join the ambassador program, happy to have more people join this year and use your platform and your community to help save lives and
yeah,
help find those who are diagnosed with HCM.
and I just want to add one more thing. Shout out to the fellow ambassadors in this program, because you don't all have to be someone going on camera or talk. Any conversations you have in any forum that you have are making an impact. So that's one of the
Absolutely.
big themes of the ambassador program for 2026 is we're going to engage all kinds of people and meet them where they are, because so many people are busy and they're like, oh, I don't have the time. And it's like, listen, 10 minutes a week of talking where you
Sharing of
can
both.
talk is being an ambassador. Doing
Yeah,
anything is being an ambassador. So we want more people involved, as many as possible.
absolutely. All right, guys, thank you so much. I have one more podcast to do today, but you're not going to
Good
get to
luck.
see that one until February. It's going to be a little bit different. I am going to be a guest on Doctors Unscripted with Dr. Tanya Small, and I'm filming that later today. So, exciting day here at the HCMA. I got 3 podcasts in a day, and it's been fabulous speaking with you, Mayer. Always impressed with the work that you're doing.
Thank you. You too. Keep it up.
Okay, I'm trying. Now I got to find that end button. My mouse is being squirrely again. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day.